Hi, everybody. Oh my gosh. The crowd is seriously going wild. I can't, you guys. Oh my goodness. Truly, it is a packed room in here. So just happy to have all of you. I'm excited today to have this records management program training. This has been kind of a really important program that we've been working on for the last year to get to this point. So really glad to be here. So I have Bruce Meyer with me. He's our records management consultant. He's incredible. You're going to hear from him for the majority of today's training. So I just kind of want to set the stage of what we're doing here, why we're here. So we had our records retention schedules were adopted by the city council a couple months ago. We also adopted for the first time ever a records management program policy, which is very important for roles and responsibilities. Many of you know the people who are in this meeting right now consist of department directors, as well as our records coordinators or records liaisons. Basically, everyone here who's on Next request, handling our Public Records Act requests, anyone who's dealing with records. You might not be a records coordinator, but you might often touch records or have to file records. So you're someone who's consistently managing the maintenance and the life cycle of any given record. So because we've adopted all these programs or these policies, now Bruce is going to be here to kind of go over what that means for us and how we implement these policies into our daily practice. So see if I can get that to switch slides. Wait, you might be in the way. Yeah. Just kidding, you weren't in the way.
Here we go.
All right, so yet again, I'm going to introduce Bruce, our records management consultant, who is just incredible. Here he is on screen, and here he is. Here we
go. Thank you. Hi, how's it going? Long time no see, huh? We have people from the last presentation here too. Look at that. Thanks for joining today. I'm just going to look at you guys because you're easier than those people online that I don't see any faces. But what can I do? Oh, I see one person. That's right. Hello. I can't read. Hi, Corey. How are you? So we'll be talking about the records management program, the retention schedules in particular, how we determine how long to keep records, what is a record, what are different types of records or non-records for that matter. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to raise your hand, put it in chat. Scream it out loud. I think we have a microphone so we can talk to this massive audience that's here. Gosh, it's so hot in here because of all the people. It's just crowded. So let's get into it. What's a record? Well, it's any writing or information or recording containing information about activities that we do within the city. From its creation to its active use to archiving to final disposition, whatever that may be. And the big thing is that this is all regardless of media format. I say that as I did in the last presentation. Too often people come up to me and say, oh, I've got your retention schedules here. That's for the paper, right? And I'm like, no, it's for everything. Oh, shoot, because I have all this electronic stuff I really wanted to keep over here. It doesn't matter. If it is in paper format, electronic format, microfilm, which is still used in the city, and someone's requesting it, and it is a document, an official record that must be produced as part of a public records request, you have to produce it. Doesn't matter the format. So if you're keeping stuff, and that includes duplicates of materials too. If you're keeping stuff in electronic and you got rid of your paper, still got to produce it. All right, so we're talking paper, we're talking binders. Meeting recordings, they have a very, very short retention life to them. For instance, council meeting recordings, technically, the retention life on that is 30 days. Do we keep it for just 30 days? Oh, heck no. We keep it longer for public convenience. It is one of those few records that we want to keep around for public convenience because people like to go back and say, oh yeah, what was that decision on my subject? Or what was the decision on this major city issue, like homelessness, for instance? So people want to go back and take a look at that material. Electronic documents, email. Not every single email is considered an official record or a record in general. That was the whole previous conversation about this. And I'm not sure who else attended my last discussions. So I don't want to go too much. Should I go too much into email? I don't think so. Okay, I'm not going to go crazy into email like I did last time. When we talk about records that have to be produced as part of a public records request, and this is separate from things like discovery and legal and litigation materials, we're talking about the final version of a document. It may have a wet signature on it. It is the final agreed upon approved version of that material. It could be something that's reproduced on a trusted system, for instance. And I will touch on what trusted systems are. I believe that's the next slide. You can create a copy of an official record and consider it a trusted copy, and even consider it the official record by creating it on a trusted system. Now, a trusted system could be as simple as scanning it to PDF, scanning it to a TIFF file, printing it to TIFF, making a copy on a copy machine. Those are all forms of trusted systems. Example I like to use, I worked with the Archdiocese of San Francisco back in the early 2000s. They had 15 file cabinets, your standard 4-drawer file cabinets, 15 file cabinets worth of deeds for all the property that they own around the Bay Area. And it's a lot. And these deeds went back to the 1800s. And they were those old, trifold style with the onion paper style paper inside that proved that they owned all of this land. Well, 1800s, it was falling apart. We had to put on white gloves and use tweezers to take them out of the file cabinets so we can open them up on what's called a platen scanner. It takes the picture from the top. To preserve those records, we created a trusted copy out of those documents, because when we started folding them back up again, they fell apart. The newer materials were okay. It's the old stuff. And it would have been cost prohibitive for the diocese to go back to the county to get copies of that information, if they even had it back that far. So we created a trusted copy using a trusted system, and it replaced the official original record because that was deteriorating. Office of Record. This is the final resting point of an official record. So you could be, it might be the producing department. You may create a record and people come to you for a copy of that. It could be something you acquired from another department or from an outside source, but you are the one who retains it. Great example is invoices. You receive your invoice, you look at it, and yeah, okay, this looks like the job is done, or this portion of the job is done. You sign off on it and send it to finance. Finance is the office of record because it's not just you that are receiving invoices. Everybody in the city, every department in the city is receiving invoices. So the collection point, the resting point is finance. Now we can talk about grants and things like that, where you have to keep records that are associated with a project as part of the project file. One of the examples is just that. I had a client, technically two clients, that had federal grants. They didn't maintain the invoices associated with those grants. Finance had destroyed those invoices years ago, and they got audited, and both of them got slapped with $2 million fines each because they didn't have the backup information for that grant. So they got audited, and that's what happened. So that's one of those kind of rare things. A record that is an official record that resides in an office of record, that final resting point, may also be part of a project file. In fact, we talked about that in the last presentation that, hey, what do we do? city attorney's office makes recommendations and guidelines for departments. They may want to keep that as part of the associated project file because it supported the decision for that item, whatever it is. All right. But the rest of them, for all the other departments, hey, city attorney's not going to keep those around. They have a 2-year retention on that, so they will dispose of it. Transitory records. These are records that are used for a short period of time to create an official record. These are materials that you gather together. It could be reference information. It could be email communications or other correspondence that you've received from maybe a contractor that are all used to create an official record. They have a short retention to them. You can dispose of them at any point that you want, as long as, and you don't have to go through the formal process of destruction for those records too. Things like preliminary drafts, this list here, notes, memos, signs and symbols and things, most of your emails. I'm not going to touch on that because we did last time, but final emails become a record. Most of them are just transitory in nature. You're using them to create something else. Duplicates and copies seems pretty obvious. People love their records. You're going to pry these out of my cold, dead hands. Reality says just because you have a copy of it doesn't mean that you are the record holder. You're not the office of record of that information. You're using it for a short period of time, ideally immediate use only, in order to assist you in creating a separate record. Under no circumstances should you retain duplicates and copies of information longer than the retention life of the official record. Because if you do, you're going to have to produce that as part of a public records request. Oh, and go back here, a good example, contracts and agreements. City clerk's office has all of them. Of course, you're going to keep a copy of it. You got to, because you don't want to have to constantly go back to Lindsay's office and say, hey, I'm not going to copy that contract again. No, you want to have that available as part of your project. Now, the beauty is that for the most part, the life of the contract follows the life of your associated project. So after that, it gets disposed of. If you keep it, it has to be produced as part of a PRA.
Bruce, can I actually hop in there too?
Of course you can.
And maybe ask a question around this. So say if I am the Office of Record for Contracts and Agreements, it's Lindsay here, and I destroy a professional services agreement after 10 years and we receive a Public Records Act request, I then tell the requester that the document has been destroyed per retention, but then ultimately it's producible because there's a copy of it in Public Works, for example. What happens in that instance?
Well, if it's around, it's around, and that's it. If there's a 10-year life to that agreement, the associated project with that agreement might be anywhere between 5 and 10 years. So if we're following our retention schedules properly, then that project will also be destroyed at the same time as the contract, if not before, because you've extended your retention life on contracts to the maximum of 10 years for service supply and equipment agreements, as opposed to infrastructure agreements, which are permanent. At that point, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and I think the point that I want to make here too in that question is that I'm the Office of Record. I would be telling the requester, and potentially if we were subpoenaed for those records, I would be saying that they're destroyed. But if they are then later to be found that we still have them, it could look like we were trying to hide records from the requester, and then they were producible through a subpoena, for example. So just trying to bring that back to the duplicate should only be kept at the same life cycle of the actual Office of Records record. So if I destroy it, it should not be kept further than that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's up to the individual to say, all right, I see that. I am not the office of record. Therefore, this can be destroyed. You don't have to go through the formal process of destruction for transitory records, reference materials, and for duplicates and copies, because the official is sitting somewhere else. That official record, that's what needs to follow the retention approval guidelines. And we'll touch on that later on too. What are not records? Textbooks, external publications, brochures, catalogs, magazines, signs and symbols, stock copies of internal publications. As long as you keep one copy of that publication as an official record, let's say for Parks and Recreation, they create their annual guide, their activity guide. It is February of 2020, and I've created this guide, and we're going to have a great year, right? March comes around, and I've already produced 1,000 copies of this activity guide, and the shutdown happens. Well, keep one copy. The other 999 copies can be disposed of. They're non-records to the city. So we have some responsibilities. I'll focus on the city staff first, and this is very similar to what the last presentation said too. City staff should understand the policy, which has been approved, and the retention schedules. Understand, take a look at them. It's great bedtime reading. I understand that, believe me. But you need to know about it. You need to know how information is handled within the city. Understand what records would be considered confidential, specifically within your department. And if there's something that is confidential internally too, like within human resources. Yeah, of course it's confidential to external sources, but it's also confidential to internal sources too. You don't want people looking at your personnel file. So understanding levels of confidentiality and preserving those records accordingly. Managing duplicates, transitory records, non-records, and retrieving records upon request, like if there's a PRA or if there's litigation and discovery. So you'll be prompted for some of these things, definitely. But you are the person who knows where the information is. You should be capable of gathering that as needed for the requester. Oh, we didn't cover responsibilities. Did we remove that slide? I guess we did. Responsibilities for records coordinators. Okay, well, fine. You guys have responsibilities too. For those of you who are on here that are records coordinators, you have responsibilities also. Being the catalyst between the city clerk's office and staff within your department. You're disseminating information from the city clerk's office and gathering information too, kind of like what we did to create the retention schedules. We all sat down, we gathered information from you to create this document that's a citywide document. We use the records coordinators, you to tell us what you have and how you think about organizing it. So that's a big part of your job. Managing records within your department too, or your division. Making sure that that staff and you technically are following the guidelines for managing information. So beyond that, understanding confidentiality, protecting, very similar to what the city, what staff do too. So if they have questions, if staff has questions, they're going to come to you and ask you. You can always give them the how-to booklet when we actually make that and say, here you go, have fun with that. I have questions about this. Well, I'll see if I can answer it for you. You're the records coordinators. If you can't answer it, talk with the city clerk's office. Activity. In any given organization, you can expect that about 25% of the information in your office, on your drives, is considered active. Of that 25%, you might reference 10% of it, But we don't know because the project might be ongoing. It might have just finished, and we don't know what we have to reference in that. But that's considered active. It's stuff that you want to have access to immediately. Another 40% of your information is inactive. There's no more reason for you to keep it in your office, keep it on your drive. You can archive it, specifically if it still has a retention life left to it. There's no requirement to keep it in your offices. And the final 35% is considered obsolete. It has no value to you. It has no value to the city. And one thing that you have to understand, you create records, you use them, you complete your projects, and then you want to keep those records forever. That's not your call. These are the city's records. You're being paid, basically, to get blunt, you're being paid to produce this information and finish a project, finish a subject, assist somebody. Those records that you're maintaining are the city's records, and you have to follow the city's guidelines. There's no keeping things just in case. Believe me, I run across the people, I want to keep everything permanently. Yeah, why? Well, I might need it just in case. It's actually one of those tenets of records management that you don't keep things just in case. We're destroying things that are obsolete and have no value to the city. We're not keeping things, with very few exceptions, one of which I mentioned earlier. We're not keeping things for public convenience, because you will get those people that come in, I want to see everything back to 1973. And then who's got to produce it? You do. Are we keeping it for that person? No. We're getting rid of it because it has no value to us. And it's not being done maliciously. It's done because there is no value to the city to keep it.
I'm just going to hop in here too. As part of the records coordinator responsibilities is to make sure that they're maintaining an inventory of these records.
Yes.
So, for example, in the city clerk's office, we have an inventory of records that we have that are considered active. Those are all the records that we have in our office. We also have a list of an inventory of our records that are inactive. Those are the ones that were over at our offsite storage facility that was local to us. I knew exactly what was there and which box it was in. And then also when it goes sent off to our offsite, it's a further away offsite storage facility that we have a vendor deliver boxes back and forth from. I have an inventory of everything that's contained in those boxes, how long they should, what the retention is on those boxes, so I can bring them back from storage for destruction upon them becoming obsolete. So that's a responsibility of the records coordinator, is to make sure that they're inventorying those records when they're sending them out, and that we have a clear and accurate list of what records we have in all of those locations, whether it's inactive, or to be obsolete.
Right. And Lindsay has a good system for tracking physical records too. She can create labels out of this system, say, hey, this is inactive now, I'm moving it into box number 123. That box number 123 is sitting on shelf ABC over in, a temporary storage location, or she sends it off site to Core Data. That's right. So yeah, ideally you should have an inventory of your records. I understand it's a big deal, or it's a big ask, but it will help you. And if you have any interest in learning more about that and about what Lindsay is using for her physical files, talk with her. Say, hey, this is a system we're using. It allows us to track things. It assigns retention periods to documents based upon the dates, or files based upon the dates that you assign to that virtual file in the system. So every year you can say, all right, I want to call these up. What can I destroy this year? It'll calculate it for you and say, here's your list. Print that out, get it signed off, and destroy the records, unless there's a legal hold on it. So these are the things I'm going to be touching on. Guidelines for disposition. We're going to review the retention schedules in a very brief format. You need to take a look at yours too, for your department and the materials that you are responsible for. Don't care about other departments, care about you. How to determine the starting point for destruction. How to determine the destruction date, disposing of inactive records, as Lindsay does, and destroying obsolete records. Noticing that disposing and destruction are not synonymous. You can dispose of something by putting it in a box and sending it off site for 100 years. You destroy something by making it illegible. Here's a copy of retention schedules. Again, pretty easy to read. Ish. Actually, that's not bad, is it? That's a good size screen. Hopefully at home you can see this very well. This is a copy of Lindsay, a section of Lindsay's retention schedules. You built this with me, so it should look familiar to you. And the way that it works, if you're new to the position, if you didn't work with me, I'll touch on how this whole thing works. In fact, I believe on the next slides I cover that. Basically, the schedules are based on a uniform filing index. Okay, it's called UFIRST. It's Uniform Functional Index of Record Series Technology, or taxonomy. And I created this system some time ago, back in '98. It's also based on a system called MUFS, and if you worked with other cities, Municipal Unified Functional Filing System. Always hated the name. My company created that back in 1972. But it's similar in the sense that what you're doing is you're dividing the city into functions. And a function can be a department. It could be a portion of a department, like in Lindsay's case. She has 3 different functions. She has the city clerk function, the citywide function, and the legal and legislative function that she has responsibilities for. It could be a couple departments combined into one. Like, for example, community development would have planning and building and code enforcement and maybe another homelessness. I'm not sure. Depends. So that's how the system works. Within each one of those functions, it then breaks down into groups or activities or divisions. For instance, in the city clerk function, she has the city council records group. She also has boards, commissions, and committees. She has elections, FPPC, records management. I think that's it. And maybe an administrative section too, right? Within each one of those subsections, those groups, it then breaks down to the types of records, the record series. As an example, in here, oh, I guess I messed up the numbering on that, sorry. 20201, which should be 30301, is general information. 02 is agenda packets and staff reports. 03 is minutes. 04, special study session meetings. You know, those are the individual types of records, the record series associated with the city council group in the city clerk function. So it's a logical way of thinking about where you're going to find something. Like I said earlier, you're not going to go to Public Works for an invoice. You're going to go to finance. So it's you think about where it should be, go to that, look within, accounts payable, right? Okay, look at that, invoices paid. That's the way it works. The next level down, the next level down after that is the file folders in cabinets, documents on your, ideally on your shared drive, which you don't have shared drives anymore. Ideally documents that are going to be in Laserfiche. You can have the same indexing structure within various formats for records.
Yeah, I just wanted to hop in because earlier there was a slide for responsibilities, and we were wondering if that slide was missing for the records coordinators. It really is like all of this is the records coordinator's responsibility. So me as the records coordinator, our office as a records coordinator, really for the entire schedule. What I'm thinking of is I know the retention, or at least I know how to find the retention for each one of my record types. So every now and then, just as a good example for what a records coordinator might come across in their role as a records coordinator, is they might look through the schedule and say, I have this type of document, and I'm going to use administrative orders as an example. When we did our retention schedule review, we didn't include that. And so when I was trying to figure out how long do I keep an administrative order by the city manager, at that point, they'll reach out to us and say, hey, we don't have this in the schedule. How long can we keep this? And then I reach out to our records coordinator to try to get what does state law say? What's federal law say? What does our city say? And then the department director can also then say, well, by preference, I see that it's 5-year minimum, but we like to keep this for 7 years, for example. So that's kind of what the records coordinator is expected to do, is if there's a record that's not included in your schedule, reach out to us, let us know so we can make sure it's included on this series, because it's the records coordinator's responsibility to make sure that we're going to be destroying records on time. So you're to know when the retention cycle is for each type of record. And then you'll be the one who's submitting the destruction authorization request to your department director, and then so on to our office and to legal.
Thank you for covering one of my last slides. No, I'm kidding. It's fine. It's totally fine. All right. I was just thinking about something else too that you mentioned just now too, and I've drawn a blank on it. I'm sure I'll touch on it later too. Okay, so the uniform index, that's what it was. Okay, the index, the retention schedules, this whole thing, this is a dynamic document. This is going to change. If you haven't started using your schedules yet, I guarantee you it's going to change when you do. And that's the point. You told me how you want to organize your information. That's great. Cool. When you actually get into it and start using it, you might be like, oh, maybe we should restructure this, move things around, or oops, forgot to tell Bruce about that because it was sitting in a closet. Or, what about that item? We don't really do that anymore. Or, oops, we want to change that from 2 years to 5 years because we really do reference this information longer. So this is a dynamic document. It will change as you use it. And that's the point. It's supposed to. You have a column in the schedules for special attributes. And you have 3 special attributes. You have vital, historical, and confidential. Vital records. Everyone thinks their records are vital. I understand. No, I got it. No, most of your records are important. Vital records, those are materials that if something were to happen to the city, to let's say City Hall, tomorrow we're all sleeping in our beds, or tonight we're all sleeping in our beds, tomorrow morning we wake up and the building's collapsed. Exactly. I like this wood better. This feels like real wood. What do we need tomorrow to be up and running and serving the public and making sure that the city survives? What is essential for the financial state of the city? I mentioned those recorded documents earlier. Recorded documents technically are a permanent record in the city. They are also a vital record because it may be cost prohibitive for us to go back to the county to get all the information we need from a vital record, from our series of vital records that have disappeared or got destroyed by accident. All right. It could be also something like decisions of the cities. Minutes, resolutions, ordinances are all vital records. Personnel files are vital records too, because if something does happen while we're here at work, we want to make sure we know who to contact if you're hurt. And the status of you as an employee within the city, your medical issues, if you have any, So that's an important vital record. A short-term vital record, they can be short-term. Accounts receivable. Something happens to the city. We want to know who owes us money, right? Accounts payable. Oh, they'll bill us again. I'm sure they'll bill us again. But it's a short-term vital record because once it's been paid, then money's in the bank. We're good. No longer vital to us. All the other ones are still because they haven't been paid yet. But you see? So examples of vital records. Historical records, items that may have value to the history of the city or internally have value to a department or a division because they reference back to this. It could be a groundbreaking. It's like, we don't care about the groundbreaking at the wastewater treatment plant. The public most likely doesn't care about it. We do because, hey, we built this thing. I know you guys didn't do it. It's the district. But still, you know what I mean? It has value to us internally, but other things may have value externally too. So anything that's historical. And it could also be a short-term historical record too. It's subjective. You guys have to make that determination, but it is listed as H in that column. And same thing with confidential. Anything that the content could be considered personal or private or potentially expose the city to liability. Listing confidential records, even in the policy, is virtually impossible. We make examples. We give examples in the policy. If you have any question about what would be considered confidential, talk with the city attorney's office before you release it to anyone. Then you've got the retention periods and research. That was a fun part on my part. You should try doing it sometime. You don't hit your head on a keyboard. I used to have active and inactive retention periods in my retention schedules. I've scrapped that. I'm not going to tell you how long to keep your records in your office or how long to keep them off-site. All we care about is the total retention period. And the beauty of the way we set this up is that there is no question about the retention period for that record that you have in front of you. It's a direct correlation. I do not like grouped retention schedules where you've got one entry just because it has the same retention and a listing of 20 different types of records in there. Forget that. You want to know exactly how long to keep agenda packets when you're looking to destroy your agenda packets. So that's the beauty of that total retention, is it's directly correlated. You have your legal reference. That's all that beautiful. Are you going to give that to them as part of the printout, all the research? Good. Okay. If you want to see the research, again, great bedtime reading. Talk to Lindsay. All you guys most likely will see is the retention period. You won't see the reasoning behind it. You do have it in. Okay. So yes, you will see the reasoning behind it. And also, if you've made a decision, an administrative decision to keep something longer, we want that captured in there because that sets precedence for retaining something longer than what the legal citations say. So that's in there too. You'll see Government Code 34090 everywhere. This is the citation, the California citation that states that all city records, all municipal records should be kept at least 2 years. It actually follows the statutes of limitations I'm not going to get into. And that's how the state came up with it. Unless there are other portions of that citation or other references from other agencies that we need to keep things longer. But there's a reason that you'll see GC 34090 throughout the schedules, because it's that 2-year minimum. It does mention permanency in some areas too, like Section A, for instance. Subsection A focuses on real property records. Those are permanent for a city. Decisions of the city, I believe that's Section B, and so on. Also permanent records. So it's giving you the overall picture of it, plus some specifics on how they differ from that 2-year minimum.
And if I can just add in there too, the reason that would matter to our records coordinator is if you're looking at, say, a retention period and you want to figure out, gosh, that doesn't seem like long enough. I will look at that schedule and look over to the right at that legal basis and determine, oh, is this a state law that's requiring us to keep it this long? Is it a federal law that's requiring us to keep it that long? Is it an administrative decision by staff and our team? Because as years go on, the person who built the schedule today might not be the same people who built that schedule 10 years from now.
Guaranteed.
And so it helps me determine, oh, can I reach out to the city clerk's office to see if we can reduce this overall retention period? Because now our process doesn't require it to be 10 years. And it looks like legally we're only required to hold on to it for 5. So if you're a coordinator, that's really what that legal basis is for, a good tool to figure out if you can reduce the amount of time to hold on to it or extend it.
Absolutely. I have a client over in Dublin, the Dublin San Ramon Services District. We started the project in 1991. I'll be in there the week after next, continuing this project. Is everyone there worked with me in the beginning? Oh, heck no. Yeah, I'm weird. I've been doing this for a long time. Let's see. Government code, talked about that. That's good. Let's move on. What else do we have on here? Okay, that's weird. Come on, go forward. Yay, there we go. Destruction and disposal. I mentioned earlier, not synonymous. You destroy something by physically altering it to make it illegible, macerating it, shredding it, having a bonfire in the parking lot. Woo. I got requests for that at Nuts and Bolts. I didn't tell you about Nuts and Bolts last Friday. I'll tell you about that later. I told them. Yeah, I mean, I always keep matches in my where's my book? Oh, it's not around here. I always keep matches in my computer case. I tell people, I really don't. Because I'm always asking, hey, can we just go have a bonfire outside? Yeah, sure, let's do that. That'd be fun. Woo. Anyway, that's destruction. Disposal. Means removing it from your offices, putting it in a box if it's physical, sending it offsite for storage for the remainder of its retention life, or permanently if it's a permanent record. It may or may not be destroyed. Long-term materials and permanent records are often sent off-site because they don't have any value in the office for us right now, but we do need to keep them around for some reason. How do we dispose of inactive records? Well, they've completed their operational need. There's no reason for us to keep them in our office, or on our drive for that matter. So we want to figure out some way of archiving that. For physical records, you stick it in a box. Again, Lindsay has this great system that she knows exactly every single record in every single box that she has offsite. We set this up for her, gosh, how many years ago has it been? 2019. Yeah, we set this up for her so she can track, she can check in and out records to individuals if she wants to. But she knows exactly where every single file is in her office. Physical files. Electronic, that's where we're going to be using Laserfiche. So we have methods of archiving materials, both in all formats, in physical and electronic format too. So for physical files, stick them in a box. You can talk to the city clerk's office about getting that. Is every department using Corridata now? Good. All right. So if you have any questions about how to use Corridata, how to send materials offsite, talk with the city clerk's office. What, you questioning it? Corridata?
So you haven't, Public Works is a little bit different and unique of a scenario. So we'll hold off on that, but they actually have a good record system to start with. It was built along, so pretty good, but you're not actively storing any records offsite. Even your oldest of records are actively on site.
And we'll determine that coming up soon.
Yeah.
Because you're next.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going to talk about starting.
But I think just in case there's anyone else who's wondering what's that mean, if you are running out of storage in your office and you need to send records offsite, we have an offsite storage facility that we can send boxes of records to if there are long-term records that you have, vital records that you have. So if you have any questions about that, please come talk to us in the city clerk's office.
Yeah. Prior to putting, mainly physical files again, prior to putting inactive physical files into boxes, debulk them. Get rid of the transitory stuff. Get rid of duplicates. Get rid of non-records and reference information that might be part of creating and finishing that project or subject. Make sure that ideally only one record series, type of record, is in that box. And make sure you have a full inventory of what's in that box, including dates and things that are associated with those files. It'll save you so much time later on. And by keeping only one type of record in that box that has the exact same retention destruction date, you won't have to go back and open it and say, oh, I got to pull this out, I got to pull that out, got to pull that out. No. It gets disposed of at the same time. So yes, ideally you want one type of record in there. If you have similar records that follow, let's say, for instance, in finance, accounts receivables and accounts payables follow the same retention period. You can pack the same ones in that box for fiscal year 1920 if you want, knowing that when the retention is up, you can just dispose of that box and not worry about it. Okay? After you get all the approvals. We'll talk about the approvals next. So when do we destroy? First thing you got to do, you've got a box of stuff in front of you, let's say, or you've got a listing of files on your computer. You want to identify the retention period. Go to your schedules, find again who's responsible, the group, and the record series, the type of record that's associated with it, and determine the retention period for it. Let's say we're talking about general correspondence. I'm looking through, all right, general correspondence. Oh, it looks like everyone gets that. So we'll look under the citywide section. Under reference information to the first group at the top, there's one that says correspondence internal. Great. Okay, this is stuff I coordinated between other departments. I have this information in front of me. The retention life on that is current year plus 2. Then you can dispose of it. You've got triggers associated. Current year is a trigger. After completion, AC is a trigger. After expiration, upon superseded, while it's active. Gosh, what are some other ones? Life of a vehicle, for instance. Those are all the triggers. You may not know, for instance, with a project file, let's say we're talking about a CIP. It might be a 5-year project file. You don't know when that project has ended, but you've created a file for that. And that file may have information depending upon how you record that. It might be in an Excel file. It might be in Lindsay's style of software system. But you don't know when the date, when end date is. Once that end date occurs, maybe 5 years later, that's when you stick in the completion date, and the clock starts ticking. And then you can stick that in a box, send it off site, archive it somehow electronically, and let the clock continue until it's time to dispose of it. So you want to determine that trigger and that starting point. Then you calculate the destruction date. Let's say that, better yet, let's just use a staff meeting as an example. Okay, staff meeting occurred on June 21st, 2025. Cool, here's all the information I have about that staff meeting. The starting point for that file, for the destruction, is 2025. We don't care whether it was January 1st of 25 or December 31st of 25. It occurred in 2025. The retention on this is current year plus 2. So the current year was 2025. 2026 and 2027 adds on 2 years. We can destroy that file on the first day of 2028. So again, it didn't matter the time. We're giving you the leeway by saying current year that the retention, the true retention, is 2 years. But we're giving you the leeway of current year to cover everything that happened in that year before the clock starts ticking. Kind of the same thing with a project. Once it ends, it doesn't matter whether it ended at the beginning of the year or the end of the year. You're using that entire time period before the clock starts ticking to calculate the destruction. Does that make sense? Kinda? Okay. So again, event date was June 21st to 25. The starting point is 2025. Retention period, current year plus 2. First day of 2028. 25, 26, 27. First day of 28, you can destroy that record. This is a very simplistic example. It can get more complex based upon those triggers. Let's keep doing that. I want to go forward. If no record series exists, you're going through your offices. There's that closet that no one's opened up for 5 years. I know you're smiling. You're smiling. You know that. Right. Someone finally opens it up, and there are 10 boxes in there, and you're like, "What is this stuff?" Well, this is a process we haven't done, or an activity that we haven't done. We scrapped that 5 years ago, but we still got files on it. Okay, is there any place in the retention schedules where I can fit these? Well, let me ask myself, are these transitory records? No, they look real. Is it a reference document? No, they look real. Okay, so we have to add this in, because it doesn't matter whether that process stopped 5 years ago, or it's a new process that's starting now, or we just forgot to tell Bruce and Lindsay about this. We have to make sure it's in the retention schedules, because we have to assign a retention period to it before we destroy those records. So gather information about what this is. If you know what it is, great. If it's something new that's coming down, here's an example. The state starts sending you a report or some request for information. Hey, we're considering doing this new report that you're going to have to produce. It'll be 300 pages, and you're going to have to do this every week from scratch. Yay. You get this letter. You're like, okay, great, thanks. Need that work. 3 months later, Nothing's really happening. 6 months later, nothing's happening. Okay, you can assume that that is not going to be a process that you have to do anymore. In fact, that piece of correspondence that they sent you is now reference information. You can dispose of it. On the flip side, 2 months later, yep, this is going to become a thing. Okay, you're building up all of this information about this new report that the state is going to require. At the point that you have to start producing this, you have to take that information and create the next available record series in the group that's associated with it. Let's say it's finance and they have to produce this new thing every month, right? They're going to have a line entry, the new state report, in the retention schedules. It'll be the next available one, whatever that group is, and it will ultimately get a retention period assigned to it, whether that's by the state or the regulatory body that is requiring it, or by the city, because we don't have to keep things forever. There's no reason for it, unless someone tells us that we do. So if that's the case, come up with a name for this type of record, a description, if necessary, of what kinds of documents are in these records, and your operational need for it too, because we'll take that into account. If you don't have an operational need, that's fine. You could say really no need, whatever the minimum retention is, and send this information to Lindsay's office. If you know the agencies that are requiring this new process, let her know that too, because they might come up with something when it comes to new citations for retention. If not, the city will do it. Keep all of those records until the updates are finalized and approved, which we're hoping we are doing that administratively, right? Not back to council. Correct. Good. So that's good. Makes your process easier, because you're going to, like I said earlier, you're going to run across something guaranteed. Forgot to tell Bruce about it. So here's the new thing. Okay. No, don't worry. It's fine. You're busy. I understand. Would you just do it? And go. Hey, there we go. Destroying obsolete records. We have an authorization form. When you're filling out that form, and Lindsay will make that available. When you're filling out that form, make sure that you not only list the different types of records that are being approved for destruction, you want associated date ranges for all that information, the retention period associated with it, and the ultimate destruction date. Okay. You want to add enough information to that approval list that the person who is approving it doesn't have to come back and question you. Some things are easy. Accounts payable, fiscal year 1920. Right. We know exactly what that is. Other things are more complex. So make enough of a description so anyone who's looking at it won't have to come back and ask you, what exactly is this stuff? Okay. Because they're going to be approving it. They're putting their signature on that to say, yep, it can go. First, it goes to the city. I think I touch on that in the next one. Yeah, I think I do. So have the record series name, a description of documents, dates of the records, and your total retention. And just come on. There we go. Okay. Approvers. You as the records coordinator scheduling this material for destruction should approve it, saying, yep, this is what I know is in this box. This is what I know is on is designated as obsolete for us. Department head will approve that. City attorney's office will look over and say, yep, that looks about right. I don't see any potential litigation to that. They'll approve it, and then the city clerk will approve it. All of that has to happen before the records are destroyed. And after they are destroyed, there should be a certification of some sort, most likely by the person that witnessed it, which may be you as the coordinators, that yes, these documents were destroyed. It might be as simple as you have shred boxes, locked shred boxes around. Right. The moment that a piece of paper that has to be shredded and is approved for destruction goes into that shred bin, you can assume it's destroyed because you can't access it anymore. It's locked. So that's your approval. Yep, I stuck it in this box. Or I watched the shredders outside take the information and shred it. Or I put it in the recycling bin. whatever it is, approve that make that certificate something that that proves that you saw it being destroyed, even if you didn't actually see it being destroyed, being shredded. Okay, these are permanent records, and the reason is if anyone comes in and asks for all of that stuff back to 1974, you can say no, we don't have it anymore. It was approved on this form and it was witnessed for destruction on this form. They're not available to you. And let them scream and yell all they want. It doesn't matter. We're not keeping records for public convenience. We're not destroying things maliciously. We're removing things that have no value to us. After the forms are approved, city clerk will keep them. If there are any attachments that might list additional records for destruction, again, all goes back to the city clerk's office. You want to destroy those records within a 6-month period. Just for convenience, don't wait till December 31st because no one's going to be here. Yeah, let's destroy things on December 25th. Sure, that'll happen. So get rid of things as soon as you can afterwards. Lindsay will most likely be setting up, at least the clerk's office will most likely be setting up scheduled like, hey, this will be our destruction week or something like that, you know, or a couple days, whatever, however we want to do it. So, and coordinate that with the departments. Don't throw things in general trash bins. We don't want those things floating around in the landfill. Recycle it if it's not confidential. Shred it if it's confidential. I know those.
There's a question about what if there was a question from
Yes,
the
thank
audience
you.
just for the microphone and for the folks watching. What if it's not recyclable?
Correct. Well, we could try to figure out some way of recycling. I tend to throw a lot of things, including binders, minus the paper inside the binder, into a recycling bin. They do sort through the materials, you know. Now, shredding is a different story. You got to be careful with that. I mean, technically, they don't like the big binder clips. And I get it. I used to have a business out in Sacramento that did all that. And we had people lined up as the conveyor belt went down, taking out things like that and going into the shredder.
I know. I just want to also add to if you do have something that's not usual, reach out to us. And what we would end up doing is reaching out to Corey, who's on the line too, and just making sure we're doing that in the most sustainable way moving forward. But we also could work with some vendors that we have here in the city to be able to destroy records through Marin Sanitary Service, for example. So we might have different folks come out and assist with destruction, especially on the larger destruction days we do plan on hosting.
Right. One of the big things is always VCR tapes, you know, VHS tapes, and even audio tapes. How do we recycle those things? And it's a challenge. You know, I believe they're taking them more often now than they used to. So. Electronic records follow the same retention periods. There is still the same formal process of destruction. Print a listing, even if it's screenshots of what you're ready to destroy, and attach that to your destruction form and get the signatures on it. Hard drives, if you have external hard drives, they need to be deleted and wiped. A lot of that might be duplicate information that's sitting on a server somewhere. Copiers, kind of strange. Who's responsible for copiers in the city? Nobody? Nobody and everybody. Well, you know, in each one of those copiers, there's a hard drive. Hard drives are cheap, and they're terabytes. And where it used to be in the olden days, when we had Ditto machines. Do you remember Ditto machines, anyone? Okay, fine. I'm old. Shut up. God, don't judge me. You would stick your agenda packet in the hopper and say, I want 100 copies, and it would cycle through 100 times and spit out those 100 copies. Now you do that, it goes through once. Where does that information sit? On a hard drive, in the copier. And that information may or may not be harvestable when that machine becomes obsolete for the city. So we want to make sure that when that copier leaves the city, we get that hard drive. Or they can prove to us that they have destroyed it, so it is illegible. Weird thing. Don't really think of that too much. But there's a variety of different sources of repositories for records just like that we don't know about and we don't think about. Because, oh yeah, we're just, making our copy. Yes. The question was, can we just clear the hard drive on the copier every year? I don't even know if that's possible. We can always ask. You can ask them, hey, let's just clear it out. Or just say, don't keep them that long. Keep them for a week. Who knows? Maybe they're coming up now with automatic deletion, which would be smart. It's a big deal. I recommend that you have that in your contract with your copiers, with your copy providers. And then there's Laserfiche too. Ultimately, again, rolling that out to all departments so you can use that as the official repository for your records, for your electronic records. Same as with the physical system that Lindsay has, you can assign retention periods in Laserfiche and have it automatically calculate. You can have workflows for approvals of those electronic documents. Start it here. This is what we're trying to destroy. Get the approvals through the workflow, and then actually delete the records. Laserfiche is controlled as a trusted system. I mentioned this in the last presentation too. It is our trustworthy document repository for records that cannot be modified once they're in. When it gets rolled out, guaranteed, when you're importing your records for the first time, it might be, oh, shoot, I didn't mean to put that one in. Well, you're going to have to call the city clerk's office and say, can you remove these for me? Because we don't need them anymore. What are not trusted systems? Your shared drives, SharePoint, local drives on the desktop, and Outlook is not a document management system. I've covered all that in the last presentation. So our trusted system is Laserfiche. If you're not using it now, we're working on it. We'll get you there. In case of public records requests or litigation, stop all destruction. City Attorney's Office will let you know and say there's a hold on this information. Stop all destruction and wait until they say, yep, we're good. This has been resolved. We can move forward. Again, under no circumstances should information related to litigation, pending litigation, or potential litigation be released outside of the city without the city attorney's approval. How do we maintain this system? Well, again, we'll have annual destruction dates. City clerk will set up a schedule for annual destruction, and everyone gets in their grubbies and serve pizza. Highly recommended. Pizza, sandwiches, cookies in the morning, all that stuff. Maybe beer later on. Oh, did I say that out loud? I'm sorry. You should see my socks. There's beer on my socks. Not like real beer. Pictures. And cocktails too. Yeah. Okay. Yes, they will set up a period for destroying records. That's good. Refining your retention schedules, like I said, is going to change, and that's okay. It's supposed to. Make it work for you. If the structure doesn't work right now, change it. We can do that. That's okay. That's the point. We want to make sure it works for you, because you helped us design it. Any changes, you as records coordinator should gather that. If you are city staff, send it to your records coordinators, and then any revisions ultimately go to the city clerk for approval. And we want to try to get that soon, especially if it's on the day that we're trying to destroy records. Ideally, have the city attorney available, or if you have department attorneys, make sure that they're available so they can say, yep, that looks about right. We'll change that. We approve this change, and then it doesn't stop the process of destruction just because we're doing it today. If you have any questions or concerns for processes, talk with your records coordinators. If you're a records coordinator, talk to yourself. Actually, no, you can talk to the city clerk's office. General questions about the records management program, again, city clerk's office. Any legal questions, talk with city attorney's office. And information for electronic documents, information services, talk with the city clerk's office because they can coordinate with your provider, your service provider. So, any questions for me?
All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and monitor the chat. It looks like we do have a question here. Is there a form we will fill out for destruction or simply write a memo? There is a form that you would be completing, and it'll have information like the record series type, the date range of the document you're wanting to be destroyed, and how long the retention is for that record type. We have that available online. So if you go to the employee website and you go to the city clerk's office under departments, and then you go to guides, you can go to records management, and then there's this records management day-to-day operations. You can also just type in records management in the search bar, but it'll give you the retention schedules. It'll also give you access to the form that you would fill out if you wanted to destroy records. And it's really clear. It's got everyone who needs to be signing it in order for it to get destroyed. And then when Bruce is referring to that certificate or that certification of destruction, really, that is just certifying that you, in fact, destroyed it, and then it comes back to us, and we maintain that record permanently. I'm not seeing any other hands or any questions in the chat. Oh, Corey is here in person. Oh, yay. There's just, it's such a packed room. I didn't see him. There were just so many people here.
Your microphone. The retention schedule, the old link that you sent doesn't work anymore. No, on the city clerk employee website? It is.
Website.
Okay.
I can resend it after this if that didn't work.
I think that'd be great. I heard there was some proposed changes to public records requests in the legislature right now.
Yeah.
Is that new?
that-
Is it like,
is
they
that any-
tried that a couple of years
Have
ago
they?
and it just didn't work?
Yeah. So right now we are watching legislation. We won't find out until the end of the year, but there is
Yeah.
legislation. It's not, I mean, it's going to be great for us. It just changes it from calendar days to business days. So that 10-day response time, if approved, it would be business days, which would be very helpful for us.
I can make the case that anything could be a historical record. Is there a good list of like not historical, not vital, something that could keep me in check?
I have no comment. No.
The name is Hoarder.
It can also be subjective. That's it. You know, if you feel that there's value for you to retain something, and we're not talking just in case. We're not talking things that, oh, well, I'm keeping this because, well, I might need it later on. No, that's not historical. It is something that you might use for trending, for tracking, histories of an individual, for instance, like police department, code enforcement, things like that. History of a property, whatever it is. Be judicious about it. I understand that some people have a hard time getting rid of records. I'm guilty of that sometimes too, or just information and things, but look at it as in value to the city. These are the city's records. These are not your individual. Yes, you created them. You were paid to do so. You're doing it for city work. So the city is the responsible holder of those documents. You just happen to have them in your office or on your drive.
If I could add to that also, that's exactly why we have our records retention schedule. So if there's, like I mentioned earlier, there's state law, there's federal law, there's all these different legal basis for why we have that schedule. But if you, as the expert in the city of Center Fell holding this record, was to say, I'd like this longer for these justifications, what you'll probably hear me do is push back on you as the custodian of record for the city of Center Fell. I will naturally push back on you, but ultimately, if you feel like that is the right length of time for your record, then that's fine. We'll add that to the retention schedule. For me as the custodian of record, everyone finds value, or at least it's changed a lot over the last several years. Yeah. But I think folks could make an argument to keep records for a really long time because it's useful. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a request for something and I search back in my email or something and I'm able to find something that if we had followed the retention schedule would have been destroyed. Yeah. That's useful. But if I wasn't able to find it and it was in fact destroyed and I wasn't able to produce it, would it have been that significant if I just said it was destroyed? Would it be damaging to whoever was requesting it, right? So is it useful? Yes. Is it necessary? Usually not.
Do you want to just mention the new email automatic deletion, how this relates?
Yeah. Yeah, so we just held I'm actually glad you said that because Bruce kept referring back to the prior training. What that prior training is our automatic email deletion policy, which will also be accessible and available on our website. But we're going to be automatically deleting all emails effective January 1st, 2027 that are 2 years or older. So there's a whole training video on that, also accessible on our employee website that you can go to and check out. And we'll be also sending out additional information in the future. Any other questions? Micah?
Less of a question, but more of a comment about the amount of records inherited over time, like the boxes of stuff, particularly in community and economic development. But what I'm really looking forward to, and I really applaud City Clerk's office along with you, Bruce, in terms of actually kind of setting up the platform to do this level of like get rid of this stuff that it brings no value.
Right.
But then what I'm really looking for is for Laserfiche in terms of a lot of the things that I carry or have on a project file, or it's really duplicative. But then also the ability to actually find what I'm looking for easily through Laserfiche or the actual official records. That's what I'm really after, because most of the time I can't find it. The current format or approach we have in Laserfiche is not easily obtained, and I spend probably more time than I need to find it, where it's easier just to keep my own record. So just trying to advocate for whatever we end up going with is if we're going to create that system for usability, then that's where we need to go. So
yeah, and a lot of that comes down to naming, naming conventions, things like that. I'm just finishing up on a project with San Leandro. We scanned the entire community development. That includes housing, RDA, economic development, building, and planning. And we came up with naming conventions, because there's no way, when you're doing a mass scanning project like that, there's no way that the scanner, the person that's doing the work, can enter in all the metadata associated with each one of those files. It's just not feasible. It's not practical, because it would cost a small fortune to do that. So you use naming conventions within Laserfiche. Ideally, before anything goes in, there should be some sort of a naming convention, unless you have the time to actually put in the metadata associated in the template. But if not, use naming conventions. Search on XYZ street, and you're going to come up with everything that has it, and it should look the same throughout, with your entitlements, for instance, and whatever else you want to have.
So following up on that, and I think this is something I want to talk about. I don't want to keep everyone for, because I think for me, to that point, this is 2026. I think that, like, I'd like to have a conversation with you, your team, and Laserfiche about like indexability of Laserfiche. It seems like it's a pretty closed system, and this is 2026.
Yeah.
We should be able to be picking up, like, not manually entering everything, and ideally seeing what our options are to have like the system be able to
have zonal
OCR and stuff.
Right. You have zonal recognition, for instance, on that. You've got quick fields, what they call quick fields. Each system is different. I don't represent any product, supplies, or equipment, but yeah.
But
it's also something that's interesting, might be interesting to the departments too, to make it easier to get information into Laserfiche, to preserve those final records, those permanent records. Zonal recognition, like you can.
So we have that. So right now, just as a kind of plug for what's coming as we move citywide, is, for example, right now, if I scan in a contract into Laserfiche, it knows exactly where the vendor's information is located on that agreement, what the department is, where the term, the expiration date of that contract, and it's pulling that data. So we are no longer manually entering that metadata, making human error, as we are human. And also it's then filling in and capturing that retention so that it knows exactly how long that record should be kept. And then it can spit out reports and let us know when they're eligible for destruction as well. So that's coming down the pike as we start to bring on different departments into Laserfiche. That's something that we do have, which I'm personally really excited for. I wanted to ask a question that I feel like is a common question that I get and that I'd love your answer on. Mm-hmm. I don't know what's important. I don't know what these records are. Can we just scan everything? I know that's your favorite question. It's also my
favorite questions. Absolutely. Yeah. Cause I get that question a lot. Well, I just want to get everything into electronic format. Well, is it, do you have a system that organizes it right now? Well, I have a subjective or in subject files and all of this. Do you have a system that organizes your records? Are you using your retention schedules, for instance, like we're doing with the city clerk's office, as the identifying tool for these types of records? If you go into the city clerk's office, you'll see a sea of color-coded files. There's a reason that doctors and dentists use color coding, because they can stand back from a system and say, where's the Bruce file? Well, they're the B's, because those are yellow. They're the R's, because those are green. And they're the U's, because those are purple. Bruce's file must be over here somewhere, right? So I can pull that file out. Now, she uses the retention schedule coding to identify files within her office, because that's the way we set it up. So that's an ideal way of organizing things. Now, if they're just saying, I want to transfer everything into electronic format, and they have nothing, they have a mess in paper format, they're going to have a mess in electronic format. And it's worse, because you can't just shuffle through this and say, oh, I think that's what I need. Not everyone has a luxury of, 3 massive screens in front of their computer like me, because I do a lot of that kind of work.
Yeah. Furthermore to that is that there could be a good amount of documents that are getting scanned that are way past destruction. They might be transitory, they might be non-records, and they're just getting clumped in because they're just in a box, and let's just scan the box because we don't have the capacity and resource to go through it. I would rather hold off on that box, go through it another time. If we didn't know it existed, it's okay if we don't know it exists for a little while longer until we can properly manage that record.
I don't recommend scanning everything.
Yeah.
I recommend, for instance, with community development, I recommend scanning maybe 5-10 years back of projects that have been completed. The rest can go into a box and be sent off site. And you can, for the same amount that it costs to scan that box, you can store them off site for 75 years. What I recommend is you do, like I said, 5-10 years back, and the rest go into a box that you know exactly where it is. When there's activity with that property again, for instance, you pull it out, scan it, and get rid of the paper at that point. That's what I recommend. But you can't get rid of the paper until we have a trusted system, which is Laserfiche.
Okay, I've got another question in the chat, which kind of came up in our last training on automatic deletion of our emails. Mm-hmm. But it says here, please note that we will be rolling out a more comprehensive litigation hold program so that people have a better idea of what items are subject to litigation hold, which is not a question, it's just a note, which we're grateful for. And it's also been a part of in the policy that outlined pretty much this entire training. There's information on that as well. So Catherine, thanks for that note.
Good.
Any other questions before we close out? I'm seeing none. So thank you all for attending this training. Again, this recording will be added to our employee website, where you'll be able to access and look back on for the department directors. If you get new folks that are the records management or the records coordinators in your department, you can always have them refer back to this video as well as the documentation as well. And I appreciate you all and your time for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. The crowd's going wild over here.